Oh man, hey everyone, Meet Kevin here. In this video, we gotta talk about Lucid, stock ticker LCID. Folks, y'all know that I've been following Lucid since the SPAC was just a rumor back in January of 2021. We saw and lived the explosion together of Lucid Stock going to the frickin' moon shortly after the SPAC actually became a confirmed SPAC. Of course, the price then plummeted after we found out that a different valuation was being chosen for Lucid, which we called on this channel. We said the worst case potential change here would be a change in valuation. That's exactly what Lucid pulled off to raise more money. Now, I couldn't blame them for that, but I saw the writing on the wall, and it's exactly what happened. And then Lucid ended up falling into the Lucid and EV bear market of the summer. That's when Tesla, Lucid, and other EVs were kind of just hated. And this is normal. Like, in my opinion, we go through what I call EV super cycles, where like you go through these 3 months where everybody just wants Lucid, Rivian, Tesla. Oh my gosh, gotta have it all. Or last year, for example, was, oh my gosh, gotta have NIO and Xpeng and Li Auto and Nikola and Tesla. I know, I even mentioned Nikola in that one. Hey, you know, it was in motion, okay? It was in motion at the time. That's all I gotta say. But anyway, in this video, we got to talk a little bit about updates because we are kind of potentially at the tail end of a little bit of an EV super cycle here. We started seeing prices kind of fall a little bit. I have mentioned some of my suspicions about Lucid's capability of actually delivering according to their promises in multiple live streams over the past few weeks, and the stock has trended down since then. I do not currently hold any investments related to Lucid, whether short or long. I do hold Tesla investments, to be fair, but I don't hold any other EV investments at the moment. So I want to be extremely transparent about that, but I don't think that makes me a Lucid bear because I've got 3 sets of insight, and then we're going to talk about the SEC investigation. First set of insight. Back when I ordered my Lucid Air Dream Edition, I was told that Lucid was, quote, "We're expecting somewhere under 1,000 vehicles to be delivered this year, with the first 520 being Dream Editions." So the target was a little under 1,000 vehicles this year, with the first 520 being Dream Editions. Okay, got it. An accurate window for my delivery would have been 2 to 4 months. This was said on September 27th. That means somewhere between November 27th and January 27th would be an expectation for a delivery of my Lucid. Obviously, I was hoping that it would be this year for potential tax benefits, but so far, I have no indication that my Lucid is anywhere close. Now, technically, we still got about 7 weeks to go, but my car would have to go into production. I get notified as soon as it goes into production so I could pay and sign a contract for it, and then I'd get it. But somebody who's way ahead of me in the process was told they would be getting their delivery in November. And they already signed a contract and already paid for their car. They fully paid for their car and signed their contract for a November delivery, and it's now December 7th, and they still don't have their Tesla. They still don't have their Lucid Air Dream Edition. So my guess is we're probably at least 1 to 2 months, maybe even 3 months behind, and that is a total guess on deliveries. Now, when I kind of take this information and I correlate it to what I see going on Twitter, what I see here is a hot off the press picture from Lucid. This is at their Arizona factory. And personally, I didn't think the picture was very flattering. I think they should have done like a much closer up picture where people couldn't count that it's just 3 rows of 17 cars, which quite frankly, 3 rows of 17 cars, what is that, 51 cars is sort of a batch. We don't know if this is a weekly batch or what. If it's a weekly batch, it could be good, but we don't think it is. Given that this was posted on November 30th, and so far we've only had really one big delivery event of about 50-ish cars, not great. That means we've certainly delivered under, maybe not certainly, but we believe we've delivered under about 200 Lucids so far since we started deliveries in September, which is not ideal because Lucid is trying to get to 520 by the end of the year. I think they're going to miss this. In addition to that, if you search LCID on Twitter, there are actually some very useful individuals who have been posting drone shots. Like, for example, here was an 80 count on December 1st. Presumably, these are the same 51 plus a little bit of extra, which is good. So maybe another, almost 30 vehicles here, 29 vehicles. That's great. And then you do have somebody here posting drone flyovers. Here's a December 6th shot, which does show at least some of the cars have either been moved or distributed. We're not exactly sure if these are new cars or just moved around cars. We cannot verify this information at all, but certainly it looks like there are dozens of vehicles moving here, right? From everything that we can tell just by kind of stalking the Lucid pictures, it is a clear expectation that we're almost likely going to miss the 520 vehicle delivery. But okay, who cares? Like, companies miss deliveries, right? That's like normal. If you're investing in EVs, it's just like a duh, it's a no-brainer. It's not that big of a deal. The problem with Lucid is going to be how much that they end up potentially missing by. I'm concerned if Lucid was projecting deliveries of just under 1,000, with the first being 520 Lucid Air Dream Editions, that they might miss substantially. And that if they end up delivering by the end of the year, for whatever reason, less than half of that, personally, I think the stock is going to be in a world of hurt. If they miss by anything more than 10%, which would be 520 times 0.9, anything more than a 10% miss, which would bring you to about 468, I think would be a cause for at least some negative pressure for the stock. But quite frankly, I think that's the threshold where it's like you could probably be break even at that amount, mostly because, look, even delivering 468 cars when you just turned your factory on in like September is really good. Quite frankly, Lucid is mostly performing. Any kind of delays would just be a temporary setback in the stock price, and I can't really fault them for delays, especially since so many of them are probably out of their control. Lucid does have, I think, little rosy projections of 20,000 deliveries for next year, and this makes me most nervous for Lucid over really the next 6 months. That means Q4, Q1, and Q2. The reason for that is investors are probably going to extrapolate Q4 production and try to figure out what the goal is going to be for 2021. And see, this is where it becomes painful. Let's say we only deliver 400 Lucids in 2021, and that took, let's say, 3 months to handle. Well, let's see, September, October, November, December, 4 months to handle. That would be about 100 vehicles per month. Well, 100 vehicles per month times 12 is 1,200 vehicles. They're trying to get out 20,000 next year, which 1,200 vehicles is 6% of that. And if I divide the other way, 1,200 vehicles, that's 16 times fewer vehicles. So they need to ramp up their production by 16x. And I think the stock market is going to vomit over this stock not 16xing their production capabilities, probably honestly until Q3 or Q4 of next year. So that 20,000 could potentially end up being a big miss. And I think that is what the stock market is going to try to price in, and I do think that there could be a larger drawdown in Lucid. Now, again, I'm not confident enough to say I'm jumping into like short Lucid. I also don't want to come across as a Lucid bear, although I don't like to let social media or my emotions affect my investments. I just want to be clear, like these are just some concerns that I have, and I'm looking for a dip opportunity. Looking at the chart, and then we got to talk about the SEC. Looking at the chart, personally, I think the best entry point for Lucid, I mean, best case scenario, there's a 2 in the front. It's under 30. It, to me, is the best case scenario. This is the Lucid chart. We obviously see momentum declining somewhat. We've had a little bit of a risk-off momentum in the last few weeks. So personally, this decline here is not even deliveries based. This is just risk-off. This is just trader momentum moving out of the stock because it's not just only going up to the moon anymore. So that means we, like at a natural point without disappointment, might end up settling somewhere around that 36 level without disappointment if we continue with a risk-off sentiment. If we continue with euphoria, then obviously everything I'm saying here doesn't matter. But I say risk-off environment, we settle around 36. Disappointment's going to be what pushes us under 30, and we could revisit that, $20 to $25 range. That's probably the range in which I'd be a buyer, and certainly under 20, it's a back up the truck, because now you have the risk eliminated that this company will ever produce a car, right? That's always been a big fear. It's like, are they ever even going to make a car, right? They are. So like huge risks have been removed from the marketplace. They're delivering cars, and you're not hearing about the cars bursting into flames or massive problems with the first deliveries. This is actually very good and very bullish. So any kind of potential negative projections that come out over Lucid, really between Q4 and at the beginning of Q2 after the Q1 earnings, probably overblown and negative, but it's entirely possible that management could they could say the right things and end up preventing a stock fall. So there's no guarantee that Lucid's going to come down. But for me, I'm not going to make a bet that they won't. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to be a little patient in this market. So I'm at 18% cash right now in terms of my market investments. This is kind of where I've been for about the last month. And I've been kind of diversifying some of my investments a little bit, picking up opportunities, taking profits on some. But I am ready to do some dip buying. And certainly if we get larger dips, I'd be a happy buyer. Now, another thing to consider, though, is the SEC investigation into Lucid. And so what I did is I went back to the investor presentation that Lucid put together in February of 2021. And I was really trying to look at this from the point of view of like an SEC investigator, and I am not, obviously. And I'm like, what did they say that's maybe wrong? And I thought, okay, well, 32 sensors on board, planned level 2 autonomous launch. Well, level 2 autonomy just means you have like brake assist and maybe steering assist. Like as soon as you have two things, you have level 2 autonomy, right? So, I mean, I don't know if the headlights are any different. I mean, certainly if the battery were different, I imagine we would have heard something about that. But otherwise, a lot of the things that I've seen in this investor presentation isn't exactly overly euphoric. There are some things, though, where I can show you some projections. And that is potentially where you get a little bit of where the SEC might be raising their eyebrows. Personally, I would probably say that this is the biggest issue that I found right here. So here, they mentioned that phase 1 is complete, 34,000 units a year. Folks, we're producing like 100 cars a month, if that. I think this was probably the literal worst thing they could have done. Like, this is the biggest SEC firepower that you could possibly imagine here. Now, they did say up to, in fairness, they said the words up to, but they said phase 1 complete, up to 34,000 a year. Complete. That's not good. I don't love that. Then they did say that they're working, currently being implemented, phase 2, 90,000 units a year. Folks, you're not there. That's not true. Not only are you not there, but you definitely weren't there in February when you put this together. I mean, again, they said up to, but when you say currently implementing phase 2, it implies that phase 1 is done. And this is probably the dirtiest Achilles heel out of this entire investor presentation. But beyond that, I will say a lot of the projections were mostly generic. I mean, a generic, total addressable market projection. Here was where you could have done a little bit of projecting. So they give the Lucid Air planned market share. Remember, there are multiple different editions of the Air. But I grabbed a little bit of statistics from Bloomberg NEF. And as of November 12th, they reported that global EV sales that are not zero-emission vehicles, just total emission, like electric vehicles, which includes hybrids, total EV sales are about 13 million, so global fleet's about 13 million. We saw 2 million sales of EVs globally in 2019, 3.1 in 2020, expecting 5.6 in 2021, so almost a double there, right? So you're seeing this massive growth in electric vehicle sales here. A lot of them, of course, zero-emission electric vehicles. But the big thing here is Lucid's projection of how many vehicles they think they can deliver. They think that they can deliver, well, they say planned market share after launch. They think if we further project how many vehicles would be produced potentially within a 40% growth rate in 2022, they think they can get a 0.6% market share. That would work out to about 48,000 vehicles. I mean, maybe they can make the argument here that, hey, well, we base this 0.6% off of 4 million global electric vehicle sales, which fine, that might work. But if you go based off 8 mil, a little stretchy, 48,000 dreams in 2022, right now y'all are forecasting 20K, and even that's not certain. So this one I could see Lucid having an argument with, though, because, it depends on what your global projections are for EVs in terms of your market share. But I wouldn't be surprised if this raises some eyebrows at the SEC, but I don't really see this one as being that bad. Like I said, most of the things that I see in here, I don't really see as that terrible. Like their revenue projection, if you take $2.2 billion of total revenue and you compare that to 20,000 vehicles, that works out to about 110,000 on average per car. Okay, sounds reasonable. Advanced manufacturing plant is scheduled to begin production in the second half of 2021. Well, they did. They did what they said they would do. Lucid Air deliveries expected the second half of 2021. Well, they did. They literally did that. So that's not that bad. You know, there were a few other notes that I made previously on valuation, but really much of the investor presentation, even though I hate SPAC investor presentations, I wasn't horribly offended by it. I think the biggest Achilles heel out of the whole thing is this. I think the build-out phases were kind of dumb. Now, it's possible, and again, maybe this is their justification. Maybe they'll just say, hey, like, we're just talking about having the walls up. Like, we put the walls up that are capable of 34,000 units a year, but they didn't say that. And SEC investigations often come down to whether or not what investors are being told or led to believe is honest and fair. Now remember, the SEC is not charged with the responsibility of making sure that your investments that you're making are good investments. Their job is checking to see if you're making an honest investment. And so that's kind of where implications matter. If you're implying that you could do 34,000 units a year and that phase is done, and now you're building out the 90,000 units per year cycle, and potentially that's what investors, invested in, then that's a problem. If that's what investors believe, it's kind of like if investors believe that the Nikola 1 is a functioning vehicle because it's rolling down a hill, and we think it has a hydrogen motor in it, that's big. When you just towed it to the top of a hill and rolled it down. Yeah. So anyway, that is probably the biggest Achilles heel in this investor presentation, in this slide deck here. Again, it's a pro forma. I imagine there are a million disclosures at the end of this thing that are loopholes about some of these things here. But no footnotes on this page. I do think this is the most risky page here. And I do think that deliveries are going to miss. So when I combine these two things, for me, Lucid is a wait, not a no. It's just a matter of being patient. And hey, you know what? I wish the best for Lucid because I think they are the first non-Tesla, fully electric vehicle company, a new one, aside from Tesla, that might stand the test of time. And I'm also looking forward to their potential partnerships for autonomous driving technology, whether that's NVIDIA, Qualcomm, Apple, whoever's got the tech and wants to put it in a car. And remember, just because if NVIDIA decides to partner, let's just say, with Lucid, doesn't mean that NVIDIA can't also partner with a bunch of other companies, right? I doubt there are going to be any kind of exclusive relationships here. But car-wise, I'm excited. I'd love to get my car this year, but I'm not holding my breath. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I appreciate you for watching this video. If you found this helpful, consider sharing this video. And folks, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks again. Goodbye.